Today, we yet again present 3 cold cases that will surely make your nerves rack. From how the toxic relationship of a couple could lead into one's death, why it took 45 years before finding her killer, to hiding your own daughter's dead body into the walls of your own restaurant. Prepare yourself as we submerge you into the dark world of crimes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Occasionally, the excruciating unknown is preferable to even the worst possible fact. When Maria Leone's 16-year-old daughter vanished without a trace, she had just that notion. Initially, family members continued to hold out hope that the girl would be discovered alive. However, as time went on, those dreams faded, and Maria started to pray that her kid would be found, even if she is no longer alive. This is the terrible story of Melanie Stacy Amaya. Come and join us as we unravel this horrible crime. Melanie Stacy Amaya. Who was she? The heroine of today, Melanie Stacy Amaya, was born on February 21, 2002, in the little Colombian hamlet of San Rafael. She was the oldest of Maria Leone and William Amaya's 2 daughters in a modest household. The couple's second daughter, Natalie, was born 2 years later. Girls were close, got along well, and trusted each other with all of their secrets from a young age. Additionally, the girls and their mother grew to trust one another. Melanie displayed her creative side early on. She drew wonderfully and had a particular interest in cosmetics. She declared that she would undoubtedly work as a stylist and makeup artist when she grew up, and that she enjoyed painting her friends, mother, sister, and toys. It should be mentioned that she performed rather well academically, and that her teachers thought she was a bright, smart, and driven young student. Since Amaya has always been outgoing, open, and friendly, she could be the life of any gathering, and people would gravitate toward her. It is not unexpected that she made a lot of friends both within and outside of school. Her ability to work with cosmetics allowed her to successfully accentuate her bright and appealing features. Melanie's parents filed for divorce when she was 14, yet they were able to separate amicably and keep their good friendship intact. Her father kept in touch with his daughters, gave them financial support, and actively participated in their lives. Maria started dating Ruben Morales after roughly 6 months, and the two eventually got married. Following the nuptials, the family relocated to the sizable Colombian metropolis of Medellin, where the man held a respectable career and where the girls had excellent opportunities for growth and education. The stepfather strove to give his teenage stepdaughters a better, more comfortable life and had a great relationship with them. He did not spare money for their hobbies or schooling. The dad showered them with love and care and regarded them as if they were his own daughters. In high school, Melanie started exhibiting a challenging and rather disobedient personality. She had a strong interest in music and even planned to drop out of school to focus entirely on it. She now wished to have a mixing console for her birthday and expressed her desire to become a DJ. The girl's arms, back, breast, and leg were all covered in numerous huge tattoos in vibrant colors. Melanie's parents did not interfere with her attempts to express herself and find her own way. Rather, they were taken aback when they unintentionally learned that Melanie experimented with illegal substances. However, there was a particular individual hiding behind the girl's odd and provocative behavior, appearance experiments, and illicit drug usage, who ultimately turned out to be the reason for her death. Melanie made the decision to have a party in 2016 to celebrate turning 14 and invited all of her friends along with a DJ. She lacked the funds to hire a professional musician, but friends introduced her to Miguel Naranjo, a 16-year-old disc jockey with great potential. The birthday girl gave it some thought and called Miguel, who was not only attractive but also very talented and charismatic. Young Melanie was literally taken over by this guy, and after they celebrated her birthday, they started talking. After a week, teens started to draw attention during their group outings in parks and on the city streets, and the girl introduced him to everyone as her boyfriend. The pair essentially became inseparable. They held hands tenderly and expressed their love in every manner. Miguel treated the young lover with respect and admiration, despite being from a large, relatively modest, if not impoverished family. Additionally, the guy genuinely charmed his parents when she introduced him to them, preventing them from interfering with their connection with Melanie. He gradually started to spend an increasing amount of time in his girlfriend's home, practically blending in. Miguel once confided in the girl's parents about his difficulties at home, including the fact that his mother disapproves of his music lessons and that their most recent argument resulted in her beating him and chasing him away, leaving him without a roof over his head. Maria felt sorry for the man and let him stay in their home while things calmed down, but she was unaware of the person she had welcomed into her family. Melanie and Miguel actually started living together after that. Everything proceeded smoothly for the first 6 months, and the adolescents were overjoyed as they had now genuinely become inseparable. But as time went on, the man revealed his true colors and had a negative, even harmful influence on his young partner. The girl started to behave and dress provocatively, studied less well, aggressively started getting tattoos, and announced that she was going to stop coming to school. As time went on, the pair started fighting frequently, and where they had previously tried to hide their relationship from their parents, now they did it in front of them. However, Maria was truly shocked to find out that her oldest daughter, Miguel, utilizes illegal narcotics. The mother made the decision to have a serious conversation with her daughter, who then opened out to her with tears in her eyes, confessing everything. However, Melanie promised her mother that she had only occasionally used illegal narcotics and that she would never do so again. Melanie unexpectedly defended Miguel when the pair decided to expel him due to his negative impact on their daughter, vowing that going forward, they would both make the decision together. Ruben and Maria grudgingly accepted, which led to yet another error. The girl blamed everything on sports or her own awkwardness, but she obstinately maintained that her boyfriend was to blame for the bruises they soon noticed on their daughter's body. But when the youngsters got into another heated argument 6 months later, Miguel battered the girl so severely that she had to go to the doctor. Melanie convinced Maria not to file a police report in relation to the attack and physical injuries, stating that she would continue to refute all of Maria's allegations and would not name her partner. Melanie's parents attempted to drive the pair apart and prevent them from cohabitating, but her daughter declared she was prepared to flee with her partner in the event that anything stood in the way of their affair. It took Melanie just over 2 years to discover that this man was ruining her life after all, in this toxic and bad relationship. The adolescents got into a heated argument early in May 2018, which escalated the scandal into physical abuse. Subsequently, Melanie took the initiative to tell the guy that they had to break up permanently. In addition, the girl threatened to report the beating she had received to the police if he did not pack up and leave her home that same day. Miguel was forced to abide by her requests. He even asked the ex-lover for forgiveness, giving the impression that he was over their breakup, but in reality, he was never able to let her go. The man started to practically stalk Melanie. He tracked her movements, spoke with her on a frequent basis, and sent her texts, which included everything from pleading for forgiveness to lovingly declaring her love to threats of murder. In order to prevent Miguel from approaching Melanie and from having any contact with her, Ruben decided to apply for a restraining order with the police, fearing for his stepdaughter's life. The schoolgirl's parents were deeply worried about the situation. Law enforcement, however, disregarded his request and did not view the situation as dangerous, since they believed the youngsters would resolve their differences on their own. Maria also made an appeal to the prosecutor's office, attempting to clarify that the man might indeed be a threat, but her remarks were dismissed as well. Somehow everyone believed that the 18-year-old boy would not hurt his ex-girlfriend. Yet this was the belief of people who were not acquainted with him. After the couple's separation of nearly 2 months, Miguel appeared to have cooled down and had stopped seeking out encounters with Melanie. The girl went about her business as usual, making noticeable progress in her school grades, going out with friends and practicing her music. Her parents attempted to erase the child's former partner from their memories and forget about him like a terrible dream, so they too had no reason to be concerned. The girl was attending her close friend Isaac's birthday celebration on June 28, 2018. The city's most well-liked nightclub was to host the celebration in honor of this occasion. Melanie meticulously got ready, picking out clothing, applying cosmetics, and styling herself because she wanted to appear amazing. After getting ready, Melanie bid her mother farewell and left the home for the waiting cab, vowing to return soon. Although Maria was not overly concerned because she was familiar with her daughter's acquaintances, she was perplexed to discover upon awakening in the morning that Melanie had not spent the night at home. It was concerning that Melanie's phone was off when she attempted to reach her. However, the mother made the decision that the youngsters had simply lost track of time, and that the smartphone might have simply run out of battery in an attempt to distract herself from her own depressing thoughts. When Maria called Isaac closer to noon, he genuinely astonished her by telling her that the girl had not shown up for the party, and that none of her friends had seen her or been able to get in touch with her. After that, the mother called every friend and classmate of her daughter, but none of them had any helpful information. As it happened, nobody had seen the girl since she had left the house. The woman called William, the girl's biological father, and her ex-husband right away. They all raced to their house and filed a missing persons report at the police station with Ruben. However, the police station once again displayed negligence, stating that you have to wait 24 hours and the teenage girl is probably sleeping after a party at a friend's house and will show up soon. But Melanie's mom and stepfather decided not to waste any more time and started looking for her on their own with the help of friends and family. They made calls to all of the girl's acquaintances, searched every possible location for her, and posted hundreds of flyers, including one that Melanie had taken the night the girl vanished, all over the city with a thorough description of the young girl. She was spotted sporting white sneakers, light blue jeans, and a short blouse. Her physical attributes included being petite, having dark hair, brown eyes, and several tattoos. Her most notable tattoos were a fish on her right thigh concealing a motorcycle burn, and one under her clavicle that said, "Crazy Life." She also had a belly button piercing and a scar on her abdomen, which further marked her identity. She had a rose on her chest, a moon on her forearm, and wings on her back. They made it plain that they were completely frantic and that the official search need to begin right now as they distributed the flyers to passing cars and police officers on the street. Images of Melanie inundated social media as soon as the news broke. The entire weekend flew by, and Maria was up all night worrying about her kid. At last, Maria went to the police station early on Monday to report her daughter missing. Because Melanie was a kid, the search was deemed urgent. Officers looked through hospitals and mental health facilities to see if somebody with the same name or physical traits had been admitted, but they were unable to locate Melanie. Melanie's parents held out hope that she would still be alive when the days dragged on, and her disappearance worried them more. That's when the first lead surfaced. When a witness went to the police station to provide a statement, they said they had seen Melanie on June 28th at the El Pomar soccer field. They saw that the young woman was battered and filthy, looking as though she had fallen, and that she was accompanied by a young man who was dressed loosely, had a cap on, and was wearing big sport shoes. Even though this testimony helped with the search, things were still difficult. While most of her friends dressed that way, the description of the male with Melanie was quite generic. Yet Maria had one person in mind, the former partner of her daughter, Miguel Naranjo. Maria asked her daughter to get in touch with him. Miguel emphasized that he hadn't seen Melanie in weeks and claimed not to know where she was. He then showed his extreme concern, stating that he still had a tremendous deal of affection for her and would be devastated if something were to happen to her. Days later, though, more testimony refuted Miguel's claims, with every witness claiming to have seen them together at a party that evening, and that Miguel was quite inebriated. The prosecutor's office started to view Miguel as the primary suspect in Melanie's disappearance after these statements. They were granted a search warrant to investigate his home, but they were unable to locate Melanie. As a result, they were forced to return to their starting point, having no clue as to where the girl might have been. Maria prayed to God on July 5th of that year, unable to bear the uncertainty that her daughter was still gone. She woke up in agony and couldn't believe her daughter was still missing. Her prayers were heard, but not in a positive sense. Maria received a call from an unknown number that same day. The caller asked Maria not to reveal their identity to the police because they had not spoken earlier out of fear. And the voice on the other end told her to stop looking for her daughter because she had already left this world and was buried in a place called El Calvario. The caller did not allow Maria to ask any more questions. Maria hurried to the police station with her husband and two cops as soon as the call ended. They started walking toward the mountain, and she asked everyone she knew to assist in the search as well. They reached the mountain's location, El Calvario. The area was vast, covered with plants, and had numerous entrances. They had to walk through squatter homes and ascend numerous steep stairs in order to get to the top, which was exceedingly risky. In order to cover the area more rapidly, they decided to divide into multiple groups. Ruben headed towards a densely forested region behind one of the houses. Huge footprints covering the ground as though someone had been dragged attracted his attention. As he followed the track, he saw several flies swarming around, emitting an overpowering smell. He picked up a stick and started shifting the rocks on the ground. However, when he turned one over, he saw something dreadful, a head of a human. He alerted the police officers who were scanning the area right away. Because animals were frequently thrown there, they initially believed it might be an animal. After more stone removal and blood staining, they were eventually able to make out the severely damaged face that was obviously part of a human body. Maria, who didn't want it to be her daughter, couldn't stop crying. Melanie's sister Natalie speculated that it might be a different girl who had gone missing a while back. The entire family remained in denial. When the body was discovered, the officers called the forensic medicine services because, despite the girl's mutilation, they could see the tattoo on her chest. The mouth was open and covered in dirt. All of the teeth were broken, and one of the eyes had come loose. Additionally, the guy who buried her had put calcium oxide on her, which was a really unusual thing. The body was taken to the Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Sciences after being excavated by criminalistics. Within a few hours, specialists verified that Melanie was the one. The young woman's body bore evidence of several forms of assault, but the official cause of death was mechanical asphyxia. Owing to the advanced stage of decomposition, it was not possible to ascertain whether the young lady had been sexually abused, but it was certain that she had suffered serious mistreatment. Although her family was devastated and there was no longer any chance of finding her alive, they were nevertheless able to track down the awful individual who had carried out this horrific act. When the discovery was reported by the media, everyone's gaze went on Ruben, as they assumed that since he had discovered the body while by himself, he would be a suspect. The community, however, held other views. Although they were aware that Melanie had no enemies, they knew who may try to hurt her. Everyone knew that Miguel was a pretty violent young man, and that her relationship with him had not ended well. Miguel kept messaging Melanie's family in the meantime, claiming he was devastated by the young woman's passing and had tried everything to locate her, but no one was buying it. Eventually, a vengeful group of neighbors stormed Miguel's house and began to lynch him. Taking advantage of the situation, the police brought him to the station under the pretense of safeguarding him, but their true goal was to question him. He spoke quickly. They had to release him even though he maintained his innocence and was confident in his statements, given the lack of evidence against him. Nearly simultaneously, Ruben was exonerated of all charges related to the crime, since there was no proof linking him to the death of his stepdaughter. Investigators started looking into Miguel's connection with Melanie, even though he was the primary suspect. They quickly discovered that Miguel had severely beaten Melanie. They also find out who gave Maria the call. When Maria made the decision to identify them, she revealed that they were a Miguel relative who shared a home not far from the site of Melanie's body discovery. The cousin recalled seeing Miguel come to the residence at midnight on June 29th with a shovel and filthy shoes. After taking a long shower, he lit a fire and started burning clothes and makeup a few minutes later. On July 10th of that year, the agents acquired an arrest warrant for Miguel based on all the evidence they had gathered. When he willingly turned himself in to the authorities, he was accused of aggravated femicide. He proclaimed his innocence and rejected the accusations, wearing an odd smile. Miguel made the decision to enter into a plea agreement, acknowledging that he was the criminal in exchange for a less sentence after stalling the legal proceedings for 6 months. After the judges gave their approval, he started to describe the final moments of the young woman. On June 28, 2018, Miguel met Melanie at the disco, which was also the location of Isaac's birthday celebration. He walked over to say hello, but not before he saw that she was messaging another boy. He was overcome with envy at this point since he couldn't believe she was seeing another man. He struck her hard and slammed her to the ground when their heated disagreement turned violent. After that, they moved to a football field where they continued to argue. He eventually took her by the neck and choked her till she passed away. He made the decision to conceal her body at that very time, and he went back home to burn her clothes and possessions. Miguel rationalized his actions in his statement by claiming he was under the influence of drugs. Miguel did not want to specify where he killed Melanie or how he hid the body. Thus, the story was quite vague. The agents surmised that he had convinced her to speak alone next to her grave, after escorting her to the sports complex. There were only two things they were confident of. Miguel was a murderer, and his motivations for killing were obsession and envy. Psychological analyses revealed that he was a violent, possessive, and volatile individual, but they also demonstrated that he was completely conscious of his conduct at the time of the crime, necessitating a trial. After the initial hearing on Friday, January 18, 2019, which took place about 7 months after the young woman was killed, Miguel was found guilty of aggravated homicide and given a sentence of 34 years and 8 months in jail. He apologized to Melanie's family and the public after learning of the jury's verdict, and he was subsequently sent to a Medellin jail. Even though they were happy with the outcome, the family unanimously said they would never forgive him. They became closer than ever after the trial. On his Facebook page, the biological father of the young lady expressed gratitude to all of the people who had helped him along the way. Even while the term wouldn't bring his daughter back, he claimed it at least demonstrated that these kinds of crimes aren't constantly going unpunished. There is a reality, though. Miguel's dangerousness had been reported to the authorities, and if the restraining order had been enforced, Melanie could still be alive. In the quiet shadows of a dimly lit room, a parent's duty turned to betrayal. What was meant to be tender care and protection twisted into a nightmare. The innocent hearts that should have been nurtured were silenced by a hand meant for comfort, now stained with irreversible tragedy. In this tragic tale of broken trust, the guardians became the harbingers of doom, leaving behind shattered lives and unanswered questions in their wake. This is the terrible story of Ashley Zhao. Come, and as we unravel this horrifying crime.
Jackson Township Police.
Hi, yes, I need some help.
Okay, where are you at?
4924 Portage Street.
4924 Portage?
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on?
I can't find my daughter.
A Chinese couple named Liang Zhao and Ming Chun resided in Jackson Township, a sleepy little village. With plans to settle in the powerful nation of America, the pair was attempting to establish a respectable life for themselves. While Liang Zhao had been a U.S. citizen for many years, having had his visa approved, Ming Chun's situation was less clear. She had illegally immigrated to the U.S. when she was still a teenager, believing that living in the U.S. would provide her with a higher level of living, even though she had no legal right to do so. Ming eventually filed for asylum in the U.S. in 2009, claiming that the Chinese government was persecuting her for adhering to Falun Gong. The Chinese government has outlawed Falun Gong, a form of meditation. This is actually a rather intriguing fact. Though it would appear to be a typical meditation technique, it is really classified as a spiritual discipline, which was outlawed by state authorities in 1999 after they labeled it an evil cult. Falun Gong, which is a collection of meditation techniques and literature that espouse the ideals of truth, kindness, and self-control, is known in Chinese as the Law of Wheel practice. For the pious, Falun Gong offers a way to salvation. The faith gained so much traction that by the late 1990s, millions of Chinese individuals of many backgrounds were practicing it, a development that naturally alarmed the government. It's unclear why Ming applied for asylum in the first place. It could have been to establish her presence in the United States, or it could have been a real fear of what would happen if she stayed in her native country. The couple eventually married after dating Liang Zhao for a long, and a few years later they welcomed 2 children into the world, Jojo and her younger sister Ashley, who is the main character in this case today. Ashley became 5 years old in January 2017 and was born on December 30th, 2011. Her hair was black, falling to her shoulders, and her button nose was adorable. Regretfully, it became apparent that her parents couldn't cope with the stress of giving birth. When Liang and Ming had an Asian restaurant in North Canton, the labor was exceedingly hard, and it seemed like a struggle to maintain the business solvent. With time, they were able to expand their eatery to the point that the couple was even seen as a casual friend by the locals, who would often joke and chat with them while they waited for their food and even spoke to their daughters. To be honest, all of this would change, and it would be such a waste of potential. In addition, the Zhao family was not doing well behind closed doors. Running the restaurant required full-time labor, and they did not prioritize their kids' needs. Ashley's parents sent her to live with her grandmother because they believed she would be better cared for there. However, when Ashley returned home to her parents in October 2015, at the age of 5, it was evident that she had not flourished in her grandmother's nurturing. Ashley's father, Liang Zhao, stated that her daughter was not even potty trained, didn't know her own gender, and didn't even know her last name when she was in the care of her grandma. It now begs the question of whether Ashley was maltreated while in her grandmother's care, or if her cognitive delay was a natural birth defect. Ashley didn't seem to heed to her parents and had apparently picked up some bad habits along the way. In addition to being overworked and being irritated with her younger daughter, Ming Ming was also dealing with unsettling rumors that her husband was become violent. But that was simply the tip of the iceberg when it came to what was going to happen. The Zhao family would be permanently torn apart on January 9, 2017. Liang called 911 on this particular day with some extremely worrying news. He says Ashley had gotten up from her nap and gone out the back door of the restaurant, but she never came back while he and his wife were hard at work. Liang said he had last seen her at 5 p.m. after bringing up her older sister from school. When she called in at 9 p.m., Jojo and the other two of them saw her that evening, but she vanished after the rush of dinner. The local community felt compelled to act quickly after Ashley vanished, since one of their own, a young child in particular, had vanished, and a statewide search for her was underway. Authorities searched the surrounding area for her, while residents looked through the parks, lakes, and woodlands.
Her picture on nearly every window. That little face on everyone's mind. People who know her told me Ashley Zhao is not your typical 5-year-old.
A lot of 5-year-olds are shy.
Calling her very social for such a little girl.
She was just very friendly.
She's very vocal. She's not afraid to talk to you.
Douglas Panzarello works across the street. He goes to Ang's Chinese cuisine all the time.
When I leave work today, I am going to drive around the back. I'm going to do my own little search.
Marty.
To everyone's dismay, Ohio's cold wilderness turned up nothing. Ashley was still missing after a protracted search, so the authorities came up with yet another desperate plan. Maybe the young child had just found a place to hide inside the restaurant and dozed off while dogs, drones, and searchers peered out at the icy weather. Police started looking through Ang's Asian food. The family had a large fridge and freezer in the kitchen that could hold food for several days, as is typical with any restaurant. Investigators observed a little gap in the restaurant's wall when they peered at the side of the refrigerator freezer, which was large enough to step inside. Even though the area was completely sealed off, the officers chose to move the appliances aside and have a peek at what might be within as a dark void stares back at them. Their hearts started to race, thinking that since a youngster might fit within, they could have been onto something. Unfortunately, they were right. The officers encountered the biggest terror when they opened the lid of a salt container they discovered nestled within the wall. Ashley Zhao, the small child who had never vanished from the restaurant, was dead and found inside. She had stayed here with her parents all this time, which was a painful fact. Police quickly discovered that Ashley's body had been doused in salt and had been placed inside a freezer. Thus, this was no accident. The proof that Ashley hadn't passed away by the time her parents claimed to have last seen her at 5 p.m. was even more startling because it showed that Ashley had already been dead for more than 12 hours when her father called the police. This was the worst-case situation that the authorities could have imagined, as you can probably assume, and it raised a lot of new issues. Liang and Ming Ming were unaware of Ashley's body's discovery because they had been asked to remain outside the restaurant during the search. But things would shortly turn around, and 40 minutes later, both of them were taken into custody and subjected to separate interrogations. Liang Zhao was interrogated for nearly an hour before anyone else. His web of lies began to fall apart throughout this period, and eventually the man revealed his secrets.
What happened yesterday morning?
Okay, yesterday morning, we got up, we prepped JoJo for school. I took JoJo to school. I came back. When I came back, my wife was very angry with Ashley because she peed on her diaper and she pooped on her diaper. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal, but she's 5 years old and she's not potty trained, like, ever. And Usually, so I drop off at 9-ish. I can't say approximately because I don't work at a time. Oh, my wife is banging Ashley said on the carpet. It was 9:15. 9-ish, 9:15, I guess.
Ashley was hit by Ming Ming at 9 in the morning and her head hit the carpet. Her father claims he was unaware of the warning indications of a concussion and other serious brain injury, despite the fact that the small girl's eyes were unfocused and she was having difficulty breathing. Ashley's parents had an opportunity to take her to the hospital after her head was hit on the morning of December 7th, but they chose not to do so, and Ashley passed away soon after. After that, her parents had to decide whether to admit their wrongdoing or attempt to hide it. They picked up 6-year-old JoJo and placed Ashley in her car seat. Then, with the intention of turning their daughter JoJo into a witness and setting up an alibi, they drove to the restaurant and placed Ashley's body in her bed. Following JoJo's sighting of her younger sister, Liang and Ming Ming carried on with their daily activities, preparing meals and serving clients as if nothing had occurred. It's time to call 911, which you heard at the beginning of the video, now that an alibi has been established and the body has been hidden. Given what we now know, it's difficult to hear the call in the same way. It's not a father attempting to remain composed in the face of fear, but rather a man attempting to maintain his composure while keeping a terrible secret.
Jackson Township Police.
Yes, I need some help.
Okay, where you at?
4924 Porter Street.
Okay, what's going on?
I can't find my daughter.
Okay, how old is she?
5. She just turned 5.
Okay, and you're at Ames?
Thanks, yeah.
When's the last time you seen her?
This afternoon, probably.
Around what time? Around what time?
3, maybe 4.
5 hours? 5 hours?
You saw her at 5?
It's crucial to remember that Liang Zhao is the main source of information for much of this story. Liang was the one who told the police that Ashley had been adopted as a difficult and needy child, described his wife's outbursts and the incident that led to Ashley's death, and placed the call that initiated the nighttime search for Ashley in the snowstorm. Liang also provided the extensive confession that filled in all the blanks in his wife's account. Liang also consented to testify against Ming Ming in court, but the video of Ming Ming Chun's questioning is brief and to the point. It doesn't reveal much about her viewpoint on the crime.
What happened? How did she die?
Just killed her, and then she died.
Did you hit her?
Yeah.
Okay. How'd you hit her?
How?
Yeah.
Use hand to do that?
Richard Drucker, Ming Ming Chun's defense lawyer, presents an alternative account from Liang Zhao. According to Drucker, Ashley's father contributed somewhat to her murder. Liang Zhao was violent toward his wife and daughter, and Ming Ming was the victim of an abusive home. Whatever the case, Ming Ming entered a plea of guilty to murder and received a 22-year prison sentence. Liang Zhao was found guilty of delaying justice, grossly abusing a corpse, tampering with evidence, and 2 counts of endangering children, even though he was found not guilty of his daughter's murder. He received a 12-year prison sentence. Neither parent had to appear in court together because they had both accepted plea agreements. Strangely, years have passed, and we still don't know who killed Ashley Zhao. Was it, as some in the media have claimed, her mother, a cold-blooded, cruel person? Or, as Liang Zhao continues to assert, was she slain by a mother experiencing severe mental distress? Is Ming Ming's defense lawyer correct when he claims that his wife was driven to the brink by an abusive father? Or was there some sort of untreated mental disorder at work? We can never be certain. No matter what caused Ming Ming's violent outburst, or why Ashley Zhao's parents behaved the way they did, Jackson Township will always remember Ashley Zhao. Ashley Zhao was honored with a candlelight ceremony 1 month after her passing. Outside Ung's Asian food, mourners gathered with flowers and candles. Once a loving family home, it now stands as an eerie reminder of a horrific crime. As the little girl pedaled her bicycle home from school, the sun cast golden hues across her path. Innocence danced in her laughter, oblivious to the lurking shadows. Suddenly, a menacing figure emerged, shattering her world with a swift, cruel act. The tranquility of her afternoon ride shattered, leaving only echoes of terror in its wake. This is the terrible story of Linda Ann O'Keefe. Come and join us as we unravel this horrific crime. On May 24, 1962, in Newport Beach, California, USA, Linda O'Keefe was born. Her mother was a seamstress and her father was a machinist. She was raised in a big, close-knit family. There was an elder sister and a younger sister that Linda had. Linda enjoyed sketching, played the piano, and had a deep passion for the natural world and animals. She never passed up the chance to visit the beach, which was only 800 meters from her house on hot summer days. The girl went to summer school and was a Girl Scout as well. When Linda was 11 years old in July 1973, she commuted by bicycle to school virtually every day. One day, she got up early on July 6, 1973, in order to get ready for school. She wore a flower-covered white dress that her mother had fashioned for her that day. Following her meal and her farewell to her family, she had gotten a ride from her piano teacher that morning and did not take her bike to school. This was unusual for her. Still, as you can probably imagine, summer school isn't exactly the most interesting location for an 11-year-old girl. Thus, Linda was eager to start whatever enjoyable activities she had been preparing for the upcoming weekend when the sessions ended at noon. But she did not want to walk home. She decided to phone her mother and request a ride because, as you may recall, she typically rode her bike and wasn't used to walking several miles to get home. When she approached the front office of the school to ask to speak with her mother, the receptionist instructed her to hold on as she was in the middle of a task. To pass the time, Linda went to a neighboring Cornerstone. Since it was the 1970s and kids were allowed to play unsupervised, she saw Denise, a friend, inside the store. They had a brief conversation before parting ways, with Linda making her way back to the school. Subsequently, Denise claimed to have witnessed Linda leave and be approached by a light blue van. Although Denise didn't give it much consideration at the moment, she would eventually become numb at the mere thought of this blue van. When Linda returned to the school, the receptionist was prepared to give her mother a call. After calling her mother to come get her, Linda discovered that her mother was preoccupied with sewing. She urged Linda to just walk home by herself because she had an abnormally high volume of orders to do. When Linda heard this, she got quite upset and started crying. It's unclear exactly when Linda left school, but after a short while her mother became concerned. She took a seat on the pavement outside the building and dangled her feet into the street to gather herself before leaving. At first she thought Linda was probably taking her time to respond, but as night approached, she started to worry a lot. Cindy, Linda's older sister, believed that Linda would get into serious trouble when she returned home, but their mother understood that Linda wasn't the kind of girl who would ever stay out beyond dark. She began phoning her neighbors after the sun had set to check if they had seen Linda, but she was nowhere to be found. When she couldn't find her, she began driving around the neighborhood. The police were immediately summoned, and the search was carried out well into the morning. The O'Keefe family went to bed on July 6th, with one less little girl in their house and 100 new worries in their heads. The next day, attempts were made to contact Linda's friends in the hopes that someone of them may have seen her before she vanished. One of Linda's friends reported seeing Linda after school. She observed Linda sitting on the side of the road next to a vehicle with a girl who we will call Maine and her mother in the car. Maine's mother was very uncomfortable with this suspicious-looking van, so she parked on the side and noted the license plate number. However, the driver seemed to have observed Maine's mother glancing at the van, since he took off quickly. Maine's mother didn't believe she saw Linda in the vehicle, even though Linda was now well out of sight and no longer in the vicinity of the road. Later on, another witness came forward with additional information. This mother, who lived next to a cliff in Newport Beach, claimed to have heard a girl scream, but she ignored it because she didn't know the child was missing and assumed it was just some youngsters having fun. At 7:30 a.m., a sizable search party was assembled, the following day with volunteers and police officers. At approximately the same time, a father and his 4-year-old son stopped by a lake to go frog hunting. The father noticed that his son was staring at something in the distance, but he was unable to identify it, so he stared in that direction and moved in a straight line. After he eventually stepped into some cattails and dragged them aside, Linda Ann O'Keefe's lifeless body was directly in front of him. The man, not believing what he was seeing, tried to rouse Linda by reaching out and touching her hand, but when he had no response, he hurried home with his kid and dialed 911. Authorities discovered that Linda had been brutally raped and strangled to death when they arrived at the lake. Like other cold cases, the inquiry went on. There were occasional leads and credible suspects, but no rabbit hole ultimately pointed to the guilty party. Having exhausted all other options, including hypnotizing the 2 abduction witnesses, the only thing left to do was wait for the results of DNA testing. The DNA found on Linda's dress was added to the CODIS database in 2000. The database, which stands for Combined DNA Index System, is essentially a sizable collection of DNA samples that investigators can search for records of repeat offenders. When the DNA was added to the database, there were no matches, indicating that the killer had no prior convictions and would not be included in it. The community never forgot what happened to Linda, even though it had been decades since her passing. The kids who knew her and attended her lessons took the narrative to heart and lived each day in Linda's memory. They had faith that things would improve eventually, that the little child who had been lost would receive some justice. Finally, after years of waiting, the Newport Police Department operated an unorthodox method on July 6, 2018, in an attempt to obtain new information. They used Twitter to generate a narrative that was written from Linda's point of view. The initial post stated, "Hi, I'm Linda O'Keefe. 45 years ago today I disappeared from Newport Beach. I was murdered and my body was found in the back bay, and my killer was never found. Today I'm going to tell my story." More tweets were posted describing the day that preceded her disappearance. "I'm wearing a dress today. It's white with light blue flowers on it and dark blue trim. My mom made it. She makes a lot of my clothes and my sister's clothes. She's really good at sewing and we don't have a lot of money for fancy store outfits anyhow. I'm back in the school office and the lady lets me call my mom for a ride home this time. It doesn't go well. She is busy with a sewing project and tells me that I can walk home. It makes me upset and I cry. I'm an easy crier, remember? She knows I was angry about her not picking me up, but she thought I'd soak a bit and then come home to eat. It's been 3 hours since she last heard from me, which is a lot when you're a young girl with no lunch in her stomach." Before the police published these tweets, scientists used a process known as DNA phenotyping, which utilizes DNA to infer a person's likely physical appearance. Once the results were in, the authorities published one last tweet. "But now, 45 years later, I have a voice again, and I have something important to say. There is a new lead in my case, a face that comes from DNA that the killer left behind. It's technology that didn't exist back in 1973, but it might change everything today." In addition to a reconstruction of the offender's possible appearance during the crime, an aging rendition of the perpetrator's potential appearance in 2018 was also included. Soon after, the DNA was also sent to a number of genealogy organizations, and a possible match was discovered quite rapidly. The 73-year-old James Allen Neal appeared to be the match for the DNA. James was detained in Colorado in February 2019, following additional interrogation and research, and he was subsequently extradited to Orange County, California. James was being charged not just with Linda, but also with 2 other females, both of whom were in their tweens or teen years. After entering a not guilty plea to the charges, James unexpectedly found himself hospitalized in May 2020. James's life ended shortly before he was set to go on trial, saving him from having to face up to his misdeeds. He passed away a few days later. Even though James was declared the murderer and the matter was formally closed, Linda's surviving family members harbored resentment. As you can see, Linda's father, Richard, died in 2008, and her mother, Barbara, died in 2005. Neither of them had any feeling of closure. In interviews and with her family, Barbara said she was filled with deep regret for not picking up her daughter from school. She would go on and on about how this was the worst decision she had ever made because she wanted to finish a sewing project, which ultimately led to her daughter's death.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us today. Check out this other thrilling videos for you to watch, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe and like button, and let us know down below your thoughts on today's case. Until then, take care.